So before I get into the world's best general, it made the Romans curl up in a ball for 21 years and pray for death. I'm going to talk about the background to his life. Hannibal was born in 247 BC in Carthage. This is in, Africa. In the middle of the First Punic War of Rome, his father was a general and was charismatic and capable. After the war was lost, the mercenary armies revolted after not being paid by the Carthaginian Senate. The city elite bricking it ordered Hamilcar to ride out and defeat his own army. This not to miss a good opportunity, and chance to add insult to injury, Rome during this time took the Carthaginian territory of Sardinia. This incensed Hamilcar and found a resentment against Rome that carried over to his son. There's an account noted by Polybius that Hannibal recorded years later at the age of 9, influenced by Hamilcar's resentment. Hannibal begged his father to take him to Iberia, where Hamilcar was preparing a campaign, and he was offering a sacrifice to Zeus above an altar, and made him swear an oath that he would never be a friend to Rome. Hannibal served with distinction in Iberia, adding territory to the empire under the leadership of Hasdrubal the Fair until 221 BC, when Hasdrubal was assassinated. Having served in Iberia and being the son of a revered, charismatic war hero Hamilcar, he was given the command of all armies in Iberia, and pushed north and west until he reached the river that marked the end of Roman influence, set by Hasdrubal. The Romans were scared. This was too close for comfort, and fearing an invasion, made an alliance with Saguntum, a city south of the river. Hannibal saw this as a breach of sovereignty, and in 219 BC seized the city. In all fairness, people say it was on his side of the river. After 8 months of siege, the people of the city starving, the army retreated into the city's citadel. He took the city, pillaged it, and sold the inhabitants as slavery, and this would cause a conflict. The Romans were pissed at this attack, and sent an emissary to Carthage to implore them to cede Hannibal to them, or face war. Carthage, emboldened by their victory in Saguntum, agreed to war with jubilation, and refused to hand over Hannibal. This is the famous bit. Rome sent one of their consuls to an army in Sicily to get ready to invade Carthage, and another consul to Iberia to try and conquer the territories Hannibal had gained there. Oh, and they left a small group of untrained soldiers in northern Italy to protect against barbarians in Gaul and Germania. Hannibal, seeing the strength and numbers of the Roman army, knew he'd lose the force to Roman spears pretty quickly, so he planned to invade Italy from the Alps in the middle of winter. This was a feat to say the least. Remember, this is the BC times where clothing amounted to tunics and bronze breastplates. The Alps were practically with steep peaks and inclines with no modern climbing technology was practically impossible to assail. Hannibal didn't care though, and after his forces encountered unexpectedly and defeated Roman scouts on the way to Iberia, after a mass exodus of mercenaries dismissed for their unreliability and valued for their own lives, Hannibal, seeing his men were getting very scared to cross the Alps, made the following speech. You have surmounted the Pyrenees. You have crossed the Rhone. You are now actually in sight of the Alps, which are the very gates that access the country of the enemy. What do you perceive the Alps to be? They are nothing but high mountains after all. Suppose we are higher than the Pyrenees. They do not reach to the skies, and since they do not, cannot be insurmountable. They are surrounded, in fact, every day. They are even inhabited and cultivated, and travellers continually pass over them, to and fro. And what a single man can do, an army can do. Only a large number of single men, in fact to a soldier who has nothing to carry with him but the implements of war, no way can be too difficult to be surmounted by courage and energy. This restored the troops' morale, and he began the long 14-day trek across the Alps. His most experienced and loyal soldiers, roughly 45,000, began the trek. By the time Hannibal crossed into Italy, he had lost at least a third of his men. Meanwhile, the scouts ran to their commander Scipio, upon hearing the news raced back to Rome, to form a defence against the Carthaginian general. Hannibal, after crossing the Alps, managed to make it to the Po Valley. Now, the Po Valley wasn't actually controlled by Rome, it was controlled by allies of Rome, some Gauls. Hannibal knew that he wanted to cross there because that's the only way he's going to make it to Italy, so he decides to bribe them. I'm going to skip over this battle because it's not really that important to the story, and also the Battle of Lake Trasimene, which is another battle. After the Roman massacres at Lake Trasimene and Trebia, which were roughly 60,000 Romans were killed, captured, or made slaves, the Romans were traumatized and turned to dictatorship. Now, a dictatorship is actually a political office in Rome. It's what you do when you can't afford disagreements in the Senate and you need to act quickly. So what they used to do was empower a man for 6 months to basically have all the power of the Roman Senate to decree laws and stuff like that and raise armies. The Romans appointed the consul Fabius Servilius Geminus as dictator. Now, Fabius was a commanded war hero, and to be eligible for the Senate, you needed to at least have 20 years' experience in the Roman legions. Fabius, seeing the disastrous losses suffered by the Roman legions, and not being able to raise new legions since they had been soundly crushed by Hannibal, decided a different strategy. He shadowed Hannibal's legions, cut his supplies, and engaged in skirmishes. Cutting the supplies was great, because not having supplies screwed Hannibal's army over, since he could not have loads of supply trains running straight from Africa all the way to Italy. This had a huge effect on Hannibal's army's morale. The Romans, however, saw this differently. They accused Fabius of cowardice while Hannibal ravaged the Roman countryside. He refused to engage and drive the heathen from Roman territory. He was publicly hated and berated from plebeians who suffered gravely against Hannibal's army. He was given the epithet Cuncator, which means delayer. Hannibal heard that the Romans despised the dictator Fabius. As he went destroying Roman land, he would burn everything, except lands that owned by Fabius, making him look like a traitor. Fabius, nothing if not obstinate, grit his teeth and waited for an opportunity to salvage his reputation. That moment happened when Hannibal marched into Ager Falernus in Campania, land that was personally owned by the Senate in the backyard of Italy. He did this in hopes to draw Romans out and forage for food. Now, the geography of this area is that there's a river valley, and there are 8 paths which allow you to enter and exit. When Hannibal went in foraging for food, Romans blocked 5 of the paths, and the rest of them were blocked by rivers, leaving Hannibal trapped inside the valley with 20,000 men, although Hannibal was a resourceful guy. In a feat of brilliant ingenuity, in the middle of the night, gathered a herd of oxen from the valley, with flaming torches to their horns. Romans, thinking the Carthaginians were attempting to escape, headlessly charged towards the oxen with fervent impatience. The Carthaginians, seeing an opening one Roman unit had left during their rush to fight the oxen, escaped through the mountains to Cannae. After some new Roman elections for new consuls, one of them, Gaius Vero, wanting glory and fame, resolved to raise another army totaling 96,000 men, and Fabian stepped down as commander and dictator. Hannibal marched into Cannae in the spring of 216 to get food for his army and get ready for another battle. The 2 consuls went to confront Hannibal. After 2 days of marching, found his army camped on the left side of the Adolphus River at 6 miles distance. Prior to the Battle of Cannae, a Carthaginian officer named Gisco commented on how much larger the Roman army was. Hannibal replied, "Another thing that has escaped your notice, Gisco, is that there is not one of them called Gisco." Hannibal, seeing the Romans' impulsiveness, made a habit of forming his army, massed his cavalry on the wings and weak infantry in the centre, protruding towards the Romans, baiting them. Hannibal, seeing this, massed his infantry in the centre, with a wide depth to use them as a battering ram, so it's like tilted vertically. Unbeknownst to him, Hannibal put himself with his weak infantry to stop the risk of a panicked rout. He was also informed to give ground as the Romans fought. As Vero's troops advanced, he was lured into a crescent formation, and the stronger Carthaginian infantry enveloped the sides, and the cavalry, after routing the Roman counterparts, closed the rear. It was a massacre. Out of 96,000 that took the field that day, only 3,000 escaped. Livy, the Greek chronicler and the primary source for the Punic Wars, recalled that some soldiers, out of manic terror, dug their heads into dirt pits so they'd suffocate to death, rather than be killed by the blades of the Carthaginians. When news reached Rome, a national day of mourning was declared because there was not one who wasn't friends or acquaintances with a soldier that died at Cannae. They were so desperate, they consulted the Sibylline books. The Sibylline books were, according to legend, a prophecy book that would give certain cures for problems that were facing Rome. The Sibylline books advised burying 2 Gauls and 2 Greeks alive in the centre of the marketplace, and they went through with this. This was one of the strongest taboos in their culture, and they hated beheadings and live burials. They called it barbaric. Lucky for the Romans, Hannibal never did attack Rome. But as for why, there's a lot of theories, but the one I believe is the most plausible, is that the defences of the city were too good. Hannibal didn't have food or the manpower to besiege the city. Instead, after Cannae, he offered the Romans peace terms. He didn't accept. After this rejection of peace, prisoners of war for a ransom, Hannibal worked on convincing other city-states in Italy to ally themselves instead of Rome. This was made easier after the Battle of Cannae, when Sicily, a Roman ally, defected to the Carthaginian side. However, The Carthaginian Senate refused to send reinforcements, as they were oligarchs and wanted to resume trade with Rome. A senator, in response to Hannibal's envoy asking for more troops, said this: "Ask Hannibal, why is he rejoicing? Yeah, he's slain 2 armies of the enemy, but he still asks for more troops. What more could you ask for if you had no troops? You'd ask the same thing. He says he's captured 2 of the enemy's camps, filled with plunder and supplies, yet send me more corn and money. What more would you ask if you had neither of those 2? The Battle of Cannae, you say, has all but destroyed the power of Rome, and the whole of Italy is admittedly in revolt. Whether in the first place any single community of the Latin nation has come over to us and submitted, and secondly, whether a single man out of 35 Roman tribes has deserted to Hannibal. Well then, there are still far too many of the enemy left." Hannibal was recalled to defend Carthage, destroying his hopes of subjugating Italy. When he reached Carthage, he found himself outnumbered. Scipio, seeing this, initiated a battle in Zama the following year. Hannibal lost disastrously, and his trump card, African elephants, were neutralised by the Roman cavalry, playing trumpets to frighten the elephants. Hannibal escaped the battle and found his way back to Carthage. Back at Carthage, the Senate sued for peace, and they agreed to cede the territory of Iberia and the islands between Africa and Italy, pay an annual tribute of 200 talents for 50 years, and agree never to wage war against another nation without the permission of Rome. Hannibal, after the war, was still popular, considering all the great victories he had won, and full of ambition, even though being 46 at the end of the war, ran for the office of suffet, which is roughly equivalent to a Roman consul. As suffet, he flexed his executive muscles by undermining the power of the oligarchy. He did this by changing the term limit on the official council of oligarchs, the 104, the group of people who denied his request for supplies, from life to 2 years. He also saved the treasury by paying the war reparations in instalments and instigating less taxation on those reparations, and stimulating agriculture and commerce. To stimulate commerce, he allied himself with the Seleucid Empire. The oligarchy, livid at Hannibal dismantling their power, informed the Roman Senate, who, seeing the ambitions of Antiochus, the leader of the Seleucid Empire, sent a delegate to question Hannibal. He fled to Antioch and the court of Antiochus, because they knew he would try and extradite him and then eventually execute him to Rome. In the years prior, Rome and Antiochus had tried to ally themselves with different Greek states in a sort of ancient Cold War. With Hannibal in his court, Antiochus was confident about having a victory against the Hellenic states, ordered an invasion of Greece, with Hannibal having a minor naval command. After being defeated by Roman forces off the coast of Side in Magna Graecia, Antiochus accepts peace terms. Hannibal had to flee again. This time he found refuge in the court of King Prius I of Bithynia, which he supported his war against the Achaemenid king. He then spent roughly a year in Bithynia until Roman emissaries and orders to extradite him to Rome. The king complied, and sent soldiers to apprehend him. Seeing no escape, he opened the gem on the ring he was carrying, and drank the potion contained within. His last words were, "Let us put an end to this life which has caused so much dread to the Romans."